want to fight for my life. I want to fight for, just and not guilty. Like, I want to have a life to be able to live. It's really going to be hard for me to take more hits than I take it, God forbid, get in front of a jury and have a chance. And so I'm having this emergency call because something has to give.
We need the core theme to be, you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong on any front. And you've come to New York to face things head on. If anyone's ever paying any attention to what you've actually been doing, you've handled this with complete honor.
I don't think it's working. I listened. I've been a superb client, as you said. I jumped on the plane. I'm coming to New York, but I'm just running around waiting for a shoe to drop.
We're losing sight of the big picture, man. It's the middle of September and there's still no indictment.
Then you have to have a spokesman. You have to have some sort of comms to constantly be pushing that, Mark. Because you may just be a person that you just may watch CNN. You know what I'm saying? And there's 9 billion people in the world. And 7 billion of them is on Instagram and TikTok. And so you at the wrong place looking to see what the people with the possible jurors are thinking. We have to find somebody that'll work with us, whether they from this country or from another country. It could be somebody that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirtiest, dirty business of media and propaganda.
When you're a leader,
It's to count.
I think it's important to...
He says it's not personal. Obviously, it is personal if you did a whole documentary about Puff, man. Yo, 50 Cent, you really on this dude's jock. You on this nigga's jock heavy, man. Me personally, I don't believe nothing that you say. I don't believe that Puff asked to take you shopping. I think you're upset because your son's mother was in love with Puff and she left you and you was in love with her. And Puffy, she was just something for Puffy to do. And I think you're upset with that, man.
For 3 decades, he was the puppet master of the music industry. He decided who became a star, who got paid, and, according to terrifying new allegations, who lived or died. But the curtain has finally been pulled back. Thanks to a groundbreaking collaboration between Netflix and 50 Cent, we are now seeing the man behind the sunglasses, and the reality is darker than any of us imagined. We aren't just talking about financial crimes or bad business deals. We are talking about secret hotel room footage filmed days before his arrest, a desperate $200 million phone call that the feds were likely listening to, and a psychological profile of a man who destroyed almost everyone he touched. From the tragedy of Biggie Smalls to the horrifying details of the Freakoffs, the evidence is mounting. The industry is shaking. Witnesses are coming out of the shadows, and for the first time in his life, Sean Combs can't pay for this to go away. But to understand the severity of what is happening right now, we have to look at the footage that was never supposed to see the light of day. The Narcissist unraveling. Imagine knowing the federal government is building a RICO case against you, and your reaction is to hire a camera crew to film a documentary about how great you are. That is exactly what happened. Reports indicate that just days before his arrest in September 2024, Diddy hired a videographer to follow him around, trying to curate a public image of a beloved icon. But the raw footage reveals something much more disturbing. In one specific scene, he travels to Harlem to stage a man of the people moment. He's shaking hands, hugging fans, soaking up the adoration. It looks genuine on the surface, but the second the camera is cut away and he steps back into his vehicle, the mask drops. He immediately demands hand sanitizer, looking visibly disgusted by the very people he just hugged. He refers to the interaction as being with dirty people. This isn't just a celebrity being a germaphobe. This is a glimpse into the mind of a narcissist who views human beings as props. He needed the rush of fame to soothe his ego while the walls were closing in, but he held nothing but contempt for the people giving it to him. You can feel the tension in the footage. He looks like a man who feels the noose tightening, yet he's still trying to direct the movie of his life. But what he didn't know was that the camera wasn't just capturing his vanity, it was capturing evidence. But the most damning thing caught on tape wasn't an interaction with a fan. It was a phone call that might have sealed his fate. The $200 million wire. While the cameras were rolling, Diddy was allegedly caught making a frantic financial maneuver. We're talking about a call to Dana Tran, the mother of his youngest child, where he explicitly discusses depositing $200 million. Think about that number. He wasn't paying a bill. He wasn't buying a house. He was moving a war chest. He was heard bragging that the banks stay open for him, displaying that classic arrogance that rules don't apply to him. But in the context of a federal investigation, this looks exactly what it is: a flight risk preparing to run, or a desperate attempt to hide assets before they could be frozen. This has been his modus operandi for 30 years. It's a financial shell game. For decades, Diddy has been accused of stealing equity from his artists, withholding publishing rights, and leaving his collaborators broke while he hit billionaire status. It's a socialist system where he is the dictator. Everyone works for the bad boy family, but only one man eats. However, moving that kind of cash when the feds are watching is a fatal error. It shows panic. It shows that the house of cards was crumbling. But to understand why he felt so entitled to take everything for himself, we have to look at where this behavior started. It didn't start in the music industry. It started at home. The origin of the monster. For years, Janice Combs has been portrayed as the glamorous, supportive matriarch of the Combs empire. But new reports are painting a picture of a childhood defined by violence. We are hearing allegations that the abuse Diddy suffered at the hands of his mother was severe, frequent, and brutal. We're not talking about discipline. We are talking about alleged physical beatings that would traumatize any child. It's been reported that she would host parties with various men, creating a confusing and unstable environment for a young Sean Combs, whose father had already been murdered in Central Park. Psychologically, this connects so many dots. If violence was the language of love in his household, it explains why he conflated abuse with loyalty in his adult relationships. He became a man who demanded absolute submission from those around him, using fear as a control mechanism. It's the classic cycle of abuse. The victim becomes the victimizer. But unlike most people who break the cycle, Diddy scaled it up. He took that trauma and turned it into a business model, one that would eventually lead to actual bodies on the ground. And that brings us to 1991, the moment where negligence turned deadly and the world got its first real look at his lack of conscience. The blueprint for disaster. Long before the billions, there was the City College charity basketball game in 1991. Diddy promoted this event with Heavy D, and in true Diddy fashion, he oversold it. He hyped it beyond capacity, ignoring safety regulations because he wanted the look of a packed house. The result was a stampede. 9 people died. 9 lives were extinguished because of poor planning and greed. But what happened next is the part that chills you to the bone. Diddy didn't stop. He didn't pivot his career to philanthropy to make amends. He distanced himself. He spun the narrative. He made sure the bad boy name wasn't tarnished by the tragedy. This was the testing ground for his crisis management. He learned that if you have enough charisma and enough lawyers, you can walk away from carnage unscathed. He viewed those deaths as not a tragedy, but as collateral damage in the building of his legend. This lack of empathy would become the defining trait of his career, eventually bleeding into the most high-profile murder in hip-hop history. The Betrayal of Biggie Smalls. The relationship between Diddy and the notorious B.I.G. has always been sold as a brotherhood, but new theories and analysis suggest something far more sinister, that Biggie was a pawn and Diddy was the player who sacrificed him. We have to look at the timeline. Tupac Shakur had just been murdered. The tensions between the East and West Coasts were at a boiling point. Biggie, by all accounts, was terrified to go to Los Angeles. He had a premonition. He knew it was unsafe. But reports claim that Diddy forced his hand to go to the West Coast to prove a point, to show that Bad Boy ran things everywhere. Here is the detail that is raising eyebrows. When Diddy's crew came to LA, they allegedly rented cars in New York and drove them across the country. Why? Why would a multi-millionaire mogul rent cars 3,000 miles away instead of getting luxury transport at LAX? It suggests a desire to be off the grid, to avoid paper trails in California. There is a growing belief that Diddy brought Biggie to LA as bait. He wanted to look tough in front of his rivals, knowing he had protection, but leaving his star artist exposed. When Biggie was gunned down, Diddy's career didn't end, it exploded. He launched his own rap career, utilized Biggie's vocals for decades, and even allegedly made Biggie's estate pay for the funeral. He turned his best friend's death into his biggest marketing campaign. But if the public manipulation was bad, what was happening behind closed doors in his private life was unspeakable. Inside the Freakoffs. The term freak-off has been all over the news, but the reality of what these events entailed is horrifying. These weren't just parties, they were allegedly coordinated operations of abuse and entrapment. We're talking about events that lasted for days. The recent indictments and witness accounts describe a scene fueled by a specific cocktail of substances. Witnesses claim Diddy used baby oil laced with GHB, the date rape drug, to incapacitate victims. The sheer volume of baby oil found in his home during the federal raids, over 1,000 bottles, suddenly makes a sickening amount of sense. It wasn't a quirk, it was a supply for chemical warfare against the bodies of his victims. Male escorts, aspiring singers, and young women were allegedly trapped in these sessions, forced to perform for Diddy's pleasure while he filmed them. And that is the key, the filming. He wasn't just doing this for kicks, he was gathering leverage. Little Rod, who is a producer who is suing Diddy, claimed there were cameras everywhere. If you attended a freak-off, Diddy owned you. He had the footage to destroy your reputation, your career, and your life. He created a trap that no one could escape from, until a ghost from his past decided to burn the whole house down. The 50 Cent Revenge Tour. Enter Curtis James Jackson III. For 20 years, 50 has been warning us about Diddy. He refused to go to the parties, he mocked him in interviews, he stayed far away from the puffy juice. For years, people thought 50 was just trolling. Now he looks like a prophet. 50 Cent is not just commenting on the downfall, he is orchestrating the broadcast of it. By executive producing this Netflix documentary, he is ensuring that the story is told without Diddy's PR filter. 50 Cent is a master strategist. He knows that Diddy has no power left to sue. He knows the bad boy empire is bankrupt of credibility. This isn't just petty beef. 50 Cent seems genuinely disgusted by what Diddy represents, a predator who used power to exploit the weak. By selling this footage to Netflix, 50 Cent has pulled off the ultimate checkmate. He has taken the evidence Diddy tried to hide and turned it into the most watched content on the planet. But as the world watches this footage, the question remains, what happens to Diddy now? Netflix's series feels like the point of no return for the rapper and mogul. It's so thorough in its harrowing detail that it will surely block any chance he ever had of a return to stardom. If its subject gets his way, the new documentary series Sean Combs' The Reckoning might not be available on Netflix for long. On Monday, lawyers on behalf of Combs sent a cease and desist letter to the streamer, demanding that the series be withdrawn based on the inclusion of footage that they claim violates copyright and involves discussions of legal strategy that were not intended for public viewing. After watching the series, you can see why Combs might be rattled. This is a man whose fall from grace last year was sudden and comprehensive, and yet Sean Combs' The Reckoning feels like the moment of no return for him. It does such a thorough job of laying out and backing up so many horrific allegations that his way back to stardom is surely blocked forever. Combs, variously known throughout his career as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, and Love, aka Brother Love, is serving a 50-month prison sentence for transportation to engage in prostitution. Additionally, he faces a tidal wave of civil cases from former girlfriends, employees, and associates, hitting him with a laundry list of accusations that includes, but is not limited to, rape, sex trafficking, false imprisonment, and physical abuse. Many of these allegations are addressed in Sean Combs' The Reckoning, and while this means that the series isn't a pleasant watch, it does feel like a grimly necessary one. Over the course of 4 episodes, the director, Alexandria Stapleton, paints a pattern of behavior that starts to feel horribly inevitable. We meet Combs as a hungry youngster, willing to work longer and push harder in his thirst for success. We see him grow into an all-powerful mogul before making the leap to becoming a rapper himself, draped in furs, swigging champagne from the bottle, J-Lo on his arm. We see his uncanny sense of timing, watching him pivot to reality TV fame at precisely the moment his music career starts to wane. But at the same time, the series paints a picture of a rise fueled by darkness. There's his lackluster planning and lack of insurance for the overattended basketball game in 1991 that resulted in 9 people dying in a stampede. There's talk of him demanding employees sign over their stake in his business, holding baseball bats over their heads. There was a shooting in 1995 in which Combs allegedly attempted to bribe a driver with $50,000 to claim ownership of the gun. He denies this. And then there are the allegations of sexual assault from women. We meet Joy Dickerson-Neal, who says that Combs drugged her and sexually assaulted her in 1991, taping the act in order to show it at parties. We meet the singer, Aubrey O'Day, who only learns that she was allegedly drugged and raped by Combs after reading it in a witness statement several years after the fact. We meet Rodney Jones, a music producer who claims he was drugged and sexually assaulted in a home riddled with hidden cameras. One figure we don't meet is Cassie Ventura, who nevertheless forms the center of gravity in The Reckoning. It was CCTV footage of Combs punching, kicking, and dragging Ventura through a hotel corridor that first brought the walls crashing down on him, and the series is highly insistent that this was far from a one-off event. Cassie sued Combs for rape and domestic violence in 2023 and reportedly received a $20 million settlement. However, what caused Combs to demand Netflix remove the series is something even more eye-opening: footage filmed in the week before his arrest. Knowing that he was about to face the music, Combs apparently hired a videographer to follow him in order to plead his innocence in the court of public opinion. At one point, he talks to a lawyer on the phone, telling them that the narrative is slipping away from him on social media and demanding somebody that'll work with us that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business. Thankfully, the existence of The Reckoning seems to suggest that the arch manipulator has finally been outmaneuvered. Although there are certainly elements of this story that have not been told, Combs's infamous freak-off parties are presented as an afterthought, and none of their long line of celebrity attendees are mentioned. The series does what is most needed right now. If Combs is able to uncancel himself in the face of evidence this damning, it will not be less than a miracle. Conclusion. The Reckoning.
Victim in all this.
Sean Combs is currently sitting in a federal detention center, reportedly on suicide watch, stripped of his luxury, his yes men, and his power. The $200 million he tried to move can't buy him freedom. The celebrity friends he parted with have gone silent, scrubbing their social media and hoping their names aren't on those tapes. This documentary is more than just a film. It is a tombstone for an era of unchecked power in the music industry. It reveals that the man who claimed to invent the remix was actually just remixing abuse, theft, and manipulation for 30 years. The big question now is, will he make it to trial? With so many powerful people potentially implicated in his tapes, Diddy is arguably the most dangerous inmate in America, both to himself and to others. As 50 Cent said, he's been dangling the carrot for years, but now the stick has finally hit back. This is a developing story, and trust me, we haven't even seen the worst of the footage yet.
Diddy had a video person, a photographer that was always with him.
Right.
These couple days, that video person sent someone and didn't come on his own. Diddy has a legal agreement, from what I'm being told by his team. He had a legal agreement with that videographer, photographer. They're not for sure if it covers this person that would have sold or whatever, however 50 Cent obtained this footage. There was also a disagreement between Diddy and this person who shot this footage. This guy was never paid, and they didn't find that out, his attorneys, until this documentary dropped. So all of that stuff, edited, unedited, that was shot in that time, they are, I mean, if they bought it and they owned it the right way, and Diddy's team is still checking that out, it's there to be used. So we are about to see some things that I'm sure if he was in control of, we might not have seen.
She's like 18, like 19 years old. In the very beginning, after a while, over time, you condition for
His opinion.
But somewhere in my soul, I think Diddy been holding on to this, looking for an opportunity to come for Diddy, since 50 put out How to Rob early.
I mean, yes, you know, listen.
Because the whole industry, remember, the whole industry at that time, if you old enough, you know, of a certain age, you remember that they was mad at 50 for, you know, talking like that in that song.
Yeah.
And they tried to really squeeze bro out of the game. And then obviously the streets and other things, shenanigans was going on, which almost ended 50's life. But then he returned. No, your man, no, I'm telling you. And it's all fun and game. It's all funny and fun and games to him now. He don't care.
Oh my God, no.
There's a whole lot of crazy shit going on. You know, when I saw they knocked the bad boy building down, yeah. Like that shit was crazy to me that shit wasn't there, which is a sign to me like, time to go to the future. Time to go to the future. That was a little building. Prepare for the building that I got ready for you, son. You know what I'm saying? So it was a sign to me like that's what I'm saying. That shit there like 2 months ago, right? I'm not tripping. Yeah, it was, man.
Puff is in this position where he has all this turmoil, but he's not at the point where he's saying where I went wrong. He's saying to himself, how do I get out of this? Maybe I can convince some witnesses that I'm not the guy who I am. Eventually,